everyone, and welcome to my channel Needed Art History, where I am, standing, telling you about art history, different topics in art history while meeting, but at this point occasionally meeting. However, I needed this, and I'm very proud of that. Welcome to another video after a very long break, because I was extremely busy in university. I'm graduating in a week and a half. I will be Master of Archaeology, Anthropology, and I'm pretty busy with mine, not so mine, bones. So I unfortunately didn't have any time to do all of that and to talk about art and just to even think about art, but I'm pretty... Well, I miss it, not gonna lie. So I hope for the next, at least few months I will be able to do this a bit more consistently, because I already have quite a big list that of artists, of different architecture and stuff that I really want to talk about, and a lot of stuff that I want to find out myself also about. So let's hope that everything will be okay and everything will be alright. So today we're going to be talking about an artist, as you can see. About an artist that turns out I knew his works, had no idea who he is, never actually heard of his name, so I was just looking at those paintings, but I never bothered myself to look his name up. But turns out that two of the works that I adore and are my all-time favorites are actually his works, and so today we're going to be talking about FRANZ XAVER Winterhalter, as you can see, and I will talk a bit later what works those are. One of them I actually saw in person a few weeks ago at the beginning of May, because I left Ukraine for a few days, and that was an interesting experience on its own, but I was in Vienna for a few days and I saw one of his paintings that I was baffled about that, and I was so happy, to be honest. So I decided that I will come back to Ukraine and I will definitely do some kind of video about. And then I found out about another painting that is also his, and like a snowball as usually. But I will stop rambling and let's dive into our topic today. So today we're going to be talking about an artist who was approached by representatives of the high strata of European society, the empresses, queens, princesses and countesses, and waiting for his portrait could last for months for them, sometimes even years actually. And if, in a field of fashion there are prominent couturiers who shape the aesthetic guidelines of the era, then in fine arts of the 19th century, similar function was performed by FRANZ Winterhalter, an artist who not only skillfully conveyed the appearance of his models, but also created this idealized image of the aristocratic class of the era. So FRANZ XAVER Winterhalter, he was born on April 20, 1805, in the village of Menzenschwand, located in the Black Forest region, which at that time was part of the electorate of Baden. And he was the sixth child in a family of Fidel Winterhalter, who was a farmer and also a raisin producer, and Eva Mayer, who belonged to an old local family. But despite this, as we can say, peasant background, the family played a pretty significant role and part in his artistic life. And as part of that, he had a really close relationships with all of his relatives, especially with his younger brother Hermann, who at some point became also an artist and was his assistant. So Franz's early artistic abilities were noticed obviously in childhood, as obviously with all of these artists, right, which was the basis for the decision to provide him with a professional education. And so he received his primarily education at the school of the Benedictine monastery in Saint Blaisien, and in 1818, at the age of just 13, he left his native village and began studying drawing and also engraving in the city of Freiburg im Breisgau. And so from 1818 to 1824, FRANZ XAVER Winterhalter, he received his professional training in painting, in drawing and lithography in particular, in the workshop of Karl Ludwig Schüller. So in parallel with his, he was paying more attention probably to painting, but he also continued to work as a lithographer, because that was the thing that ensured his financial independence. So he was selling these works. And so for those of you who don't know what lithography is, so this is a graphic technique which basically consists of creating an image on specially, prepared surface. Usually it's a stone, limestone specifically, or sometimes it could be metal plates, but mostly it's stone, as far as I'm aware. And at least all of the lithographers that I know, they're using stones. So the image is applied with some, fatty materials, after which it is treated with some chemical solution to ensure the selective interaction with the paints during the printing. And in the case of color lithography, a separate printing stone is used for each of the color. And if the author himself, performing this, like printing all of this stuff, printing the images, the resulting prints have the status of authorlithography, and they are all considered original works of art. And lithography stones also can be stored for later use after just, appropriate treatment with the protective solution on them. So it's a pretty hard technique that requires a lot of work. I mean, all of the engraving, to be honest, it's pretty hard and requires a lot of work. But getting back to Winterhalter, so in 1824 then, he entered the Munich Academy of Arts, receiving a scholarship from Ludwig I, Duke of Baden, and his studies were conducted under the guidance of Professor Peter von Cornelius, who was known for his very strict academic approaches that actually did not correspond to the individual preferences of young Winterhalter. A much closer mentor in spirit was Joseph Karl Stiller, who was a popular portrait painter of the era as well, and who contributed to Winterhalter's professional growth. In particularly, as it's said in particular helping him to obtain the first aristocratic orders. And just at the age of just 23, Winterhalter became a drawing teacher for the Swedish Princess Sophia. About his early works, so early technical training as a lithographer undoubtedly contributed to the formation of this, high accuracy and attention to details, which later became extremely important in the context of numerous portrait orders and the need for their careful copying. And this experience had a decisive influence on the formation of his artistic method. At the same time, you see this disappointment in von Cornelius' academism and professional attraction to Stiller's style indicated Winterhalter's early orientation to this more portrait genre and the correspondence of his artistic manner to the aesthetic demands of the era, which determined his further specialization and commercial success. So Franz Winterhalter's early style was somewhat conservative, still, as we can say, and characterized by this smooth, almost animal-like surface, and his works were significantly influenced by neoclassicism, which manifested itself in the limited use of color and also the more like simplicity of the forms, as art historians like to say. Over time, though, elements of romanticism noticeably appear in his paintings, which are reflected in those more free, more emotional approach to the transfer of the image. And Winterhalter gained popularity thanks to portraits that combined the resemblance of the individuals, with idealization and elements of some flattery, which was characteristic of their artistic approach at the time. And the artist skillfully depicted the sensuality of the skin, of the hair, all of these luxurious fabrics such as silk, tulle, also some jewelry like pearls and etc. And his attention to detail, especially in the depiction of those fashionable ensembles, so again those textures and draper of clothes, again jewelry, etc., made his works pretty unique. And Winterhalter often depicted aristocratic women in those more, relaxed poses, using those bold color schemes and contrasting combinations of luxurious fabrics with those delicate skin tones. And in addition, he pretty often placed his models in those, idyllic landscapes, decorating them with some floral motifs and etc. So the artist's work were distinguished by the idealized depiction of his models, which made them more attractive and glamorous, while still remaining recognizable. The following years of Winterhalter's work were a period of gradual development and improvement of his artistic method. So in 1833-1834, the artist received a scholarship that allowed him to travel to Italy, where he created romantic genre scenes executed in the manner of Leopold Robert, who was a Swiss artist actually, but he painted a lot, many Italian themed paintings, and just overall explored Italy and its art. But in Rome, Winterhalter joined the circle of artists under the leadership of Horace Vernet, who was a director of the French Academy in Rome and also the favorite artist of King Louis Philippe I. So under the influence of this, as a lot of art historians really like to say, Italian light, because well, Italy, it's a south country, has a bit different atmosphere. Also this architecture, this romanticism, so the artist significantly improved his style, in particularly improved compositional solutions in his genre scenes. However, gradually his creative searches again led him back to the border genre, which became his main specialization from now on. And after returning to Germany, Franz Winterhalter was appointed official court painter of Leopold of Baden, the one who gave him a scholarship, where he created a portrait gallery of the prince and also his wife. But, artists' ambitions quickly went beyond the ducal court, and in 1836 Winterhalter moved to Paris, actually the center of European art from all time, basically, almost, and where he quickly gained attention for his Italian genre scenes, which were exhibited at the salons between 1836 and 1838, including works such as Il Dolce Far Niente and Il Decameron. And in Paris, he actively participated in exhibitions, gaining fame for his for this refined manner of execution, those deep psychological perception of his models, and mastery of conveying the luxury of fabrics, hairstyles, and also jewelry. A real breakthrough in his career came after creating a portrait of Prince Wagramsky with his daughter, which impressed the public and attracted numerous commissions to the artist. So Winterhalter began working on portraits of Queen Louise of Belgium and her son, then later the French Queen Maria Amalia, which led to his appointment as court painter to the French royal house overall. And King Louis Philippe commissioned the artist to paint a series of portraits of the entire royal family and leading members of the court. So this success established Winterhalter's reputation as a master of the art of creating portraits of royal and noble families, in particular due to the successful combination of this external resemblance with idealization of the image, as well as the ability to embody the solemnity of the portrait with this, contemporary fashionable elements. During his work in France, Winterhalter created more than 30 portraits of members of the royal family, becoming a favorite portraitist during the July monarchy, which was going on from 1830 to 1848. However, he was not sitting just in France for all this period of time. No, in 1842 he first visited England and subsequently returned several times, gaining recognition at the English royal court as well. So he worked for Queen Victoria, he painted her, he painted Prince Albert, their family, and created no less than actually 120 works for them, many of which are now in the royal collection still. So he became Queen Victoria's favorite artist, and he spent quite a bit of time, quite a significant part of the year actually, in English court during the next 20 years. So so they became pretty good friends, as I understood, with Queen Victoria. So it was again not this thing that he was for 20 years living in England. No, he was just coming here and there and for like 20 years and spent quite a bit of time with her for these 20 years. And also he painted a lot of different English aristocracy. So then the fall of Louis Philippe in 1848 happened. However, this did not harm Franz Winterhalter's reputation, and during the reign of the Second Empire, when Napoleon III came to power, the artist's popularity increased significantly actually, and he became the main portraitist of the French imperial family and the court. So Empress Eugénie became his favorite model, who generously rewarded him for his works. And in 1855, Winterhalter created one of his most famous works. This is the painting I was talking about. One of my all-time favorite paintings is Empress Eugénie surrounded by ladies in waiting, which made a splash at the World Exhibition in Paris, becoming a symbol of this empire style which combined elegance and splendor. So the artist also received commissions from the courts of other European countries that are, well, I already mentioned, Belgium, Spain, Russian Empire, and the German states. And actually, in 1850s, 1860s, he was working for Polish nobility and Russian Empire nobility, aristocracy. And in 1857 specifically, he was invited to Russian Empire, where he painted portraits of Empress Maria Alexandrovna, which opened up access to the again to a lot of other aristocracy here in Russian Empire. And so there was, those very prominent families such as Yusupovы, Rimsky-Korsakovы, Shuvalovы, and etc. Those are like some prominent names of those aristocrats of the time. All of them posed in his studio at some point. However, in order to efficiently fulfill those numerous orders that Winterhalter had, he needed to, come up with something. And so he basically created the system that was used for, at this point already, hundreds of years by artists. He created, as we can say, such a factory where he had a lot of different assistants, a lot of younger assistants who were doing the main body of the work, so the background, sometimes even the body of the model and everything. And then Winterhalter would come and he would finish the portrait by adding details, adding obviously faces, working on the hands, because hands is one of the things that a lot of art historians will tell you that this is one of the most prominent sign that you are a great artist, because sometimes the whole work, the whole portrait, let's say, can be pretty skillfully made, but when you look at the arms, they look crooked, they look strange and whatever. And so, apparently it's the hardest part to paint, and paint successful and recognizably as well, as we can say. So he would just come like this and finish all of these little details, finish the faces, finish the hands. But that was the only way how Winterhalter could have, finished all of his works in time, because again, he had so many orders. And the artist's huge studio was a place of close collaboration also with his younger brother Herman, and also his friend Albert Grafle, oh my god, sorry for this stress. But despite all of this fame and wealth and constant work and all this travel through Europe and everything, to different European courts and monarchies, Winterhalter, as it said, remained modest and reserved in everyday life. So he never married, but had a strong attachment to his family. Again, in particular, just his younger brother Herman. Don't really know, didn't see any information what was going on there, why they were so close. Maybe they bonded upon all this art stuff, actually. But that was, it's always specified that Herman was his favorite one. And in 1859, actually, also, he purchased a villa for himself, well, probably for his family as well, also in Baden-Baden, where he often spent time for the rest and also for some treatment. What about latest works and changes in them? So the late period of Franz Winterhalter's works is marked by a tangible evolution of the artist's manner, which is characterized by this increased expressiveness, this dynamics and chiaroscuro liveliness, as it's said. And this chiaroscuro is like, play of light and shadows, the thing that Da Vinci used a lot. And so these qualities, in particular that I said, this light, life and liveliness, all of this were highly appreciated by the monarchs, especially by Queen Victoria, we can highlight some of them, and also like other aristocratic costumers. In stylistic terms, his late work demonstrated synthesis of these elements of neoclassicism, where he started, again, simplistic forms and compositional harmony, with this sophistication and decorative richness inherent in Rococo. And it was this combination, now often classified as Neo-Rococo, that gave his works a unique character that organically fit into the aesthetical, aesthetical demands of the European aristocracy of the middle and the second half of the 19th century. In terms of technique, he was, well, clearly he was using oil paint on canvas, because it would be the easiest material for him to work on such a huge and amazing works, and also, for changes and stuff. So oil paint is the best, to be honest. Yeah. So, but it is said that first, when he started, his method included both preliminary preparation in the form of sketches made with some chalk or diluted paint, but then with time it was just direct application of paint to the canvas without sketch, which will indicate a high level of confidence in his skills at this point. And his paintings was distinguished by a fast and precise manner of painting, because again he had those, like, a lot of people, a lot of assistants who was helping him. And there is a hypothesis also actually that Winterhalter could have used some photographs as an auxiliary tool for fixing poses or some details, for example, which actually was pretty typical for the artists of the second half of the 19th century, who thought to combine accuracy with this artistic idealization. And the evolution of style from this early academic smoothness and conservative modeling to a more relaxed, more romanticized manner, all of this testified both to the artist's adaptability to those changing aesthetic preferences of the era and to his growing confidence in his own artistic style, in his own artistic vision, as we can say. And one of the later examples of his style is the portrait of Empress Elizabeth of Austria. That is the portrait that I saw in person. That is one of my favorite portraits of all the time. She's an extremely controversial figure. I'm not sugarcoating her, to be honest. She was a bit, in the head, but I mean, considering her situation, it's not a surprise that it's happened like that with her, but still, you can have some compassion to a person but still think that she was a bad person. And yeah, but overall, just her portraits, I was in her museum in Vienna, so there's this museum of Empress Sissi, and there was this portrait of Winterhalter's portrait of her that that I'm in love with for years and years at this point, to be honest. And when I saw this, I had no idea actually that this portrait is there. I don't know why, but I mean, yeah. And when I'm getting to this room and I'm seeing this portrait, and I'm just I was with my friend and I was like, take a photo of me, please. I need a photo with this portrait. So so that is one of the portraits that I adore. I don't even know what speaks to me, but there's this combined elements in this, which shows this psychological depths, as we can say, because she is amazing in this portrait, and also this compositional sophistication and this sumptuous visualization of all of that. I don't know. And I also remember seeing there were this film Corset, I think it's called in English, something like that. Where she's portrayed, she's standing in a corset with this her middle finger up on the poster. It's an amazing movie, to be honest. I really, really like. I mean, I love this actress also who played this Empress Sissi. She does not look. She has no resemblance to Empress Sissi at all. But I adore this actress. I mean, she's the epitome, to be honest, of beauty to me. And really highly recommend you to watch this movie. And there were certain parts that I was skeptical about, but when I got to the museum and I saw different stuff, all this everyday stuff in the museum, I was like, oh, okay, so maybe the movie was kind of accurate at certain points. Yeah, but it can be kind of boring if you are not into movies like that. It can be pretty boring because there's no dynamics there. It's more about this psychological depth of Empress. As I think a lot of researchers really like to. That is the most interesting stuff for us, for people of 21st century now. We're trying to dig all of these problems out of our heads and to analyze everyone around us, and especially people from the past. And so it's this type of movie. They're trying to analyze her, basically. I don't know. Well, at least I saw it like that. But overall, you know, the picture, the costumes, the actor, all of this was so beautiful. And then why I mentioned that, because that was shown how this portrait was made. So yeah, so she was there, well, posing to this artist, to Winterhalter, basically. And yeah, she was it was very fun. I don't know, I mean, I'm curious actually whether it was like this or that was a movie interpretation, when she's like, yeah, she's standing like that, she's posing, and she's with the cigarette, you know, she's smoking and just saying something and arguing with people around, but while he's painting her. I don't know, I really like this scene and this portrait also, and like, whatever, let's move on. So again, I want to stress that one of the main features of Winterhalter's work was his exceptional mastery of the technique of the conveying materiality. So in particular, this silk fabrics, these tools, this different other textures, you know, jewelries, leather, all of this hairstyles, and etc. And this emphasis on the depiction of wealth through clothing and accessories had not only, you know, this aesthetic function, but also a social cultural one. The artist visually encoded status, power, and belonging to the aristocratic class. So in his works, you know, all this both interior, this landscape backgrounds, clothing, just overall entourage played an important role in forming this symbolic image of social prestige and serving as a visual tool for the we can say legitimatization, oh my god, of power. Yes, so the artist's key works include genre scenes from the Italian period, as I mentioned, such as Il Dolce Far Niente and Il Decameron, which opened the way to his recognition in Paris. An important part of the legacy is made up of portraits of monarchical families, a series of portraits of King Louis Philippe and his family, more than 100, as I said, 120 portraits of Queen Victoria and her family from 1842 and plus 20 years almost. Then the iconic painting of Empress Eugenie surrounded by her ladies-in-waiting, my favorite, which became, as I said, the symbol of this, the symbol of style and of the Second Empire, and the iconic portrait of Empress Elizabeth of Austria with those stars in her hair. Also significant are works such as Florinda, which is a mythologized composition from the Spanish epic, which actually demonstrates as well that the artist's ability for this complex narrative plots, and also the portrait of Princess Leonila, signed Wittgenstein, marked by a special intimacy and sensuality. So I hate this word. But these works have not only, as I said, artistic, but also, and not just, you know, the symbol status, but also historical and documentary value, because they represent not only the physical appearance of the models, but also the visual culture of that time, those fashion trends, symbols of social status and political power of the time. Thus, Winterhalter's work is an important source for studying the cultural code of our European aristocracy of the 19th century. And despite despite his success, and despite the fact that he was like favorite artist of almost all of the royals back in time, among his contemporaries there was still some criticism, right? He was criticized for his works as well, obviously. So some art critics and observers of the 19th century, they perceived his works as, you know, this overly sentimental, superficial, and devoid of this deep context, accusing the artist of focusing mainly on the just on this fashionable taste of the elite, rather than on artistic artistic innovations, of artistic experimentations and stuff like this. So he was accused of aesthetic pretentiousness and decorativeness, which according to critics reduced the artistic value of his paintings. However, that is exactly what those royals and monarchs and those aristocracy actually liked and wanted and demanded, and thus still, you know, he remained his reputation remained undeniably high among the European aristocracy. And this is confirmed in particularly by the statement of Alexandre Dumas, a French writer, it's him who described this situation in the artist studio where noble ladies waited for months, sometimes even years, to get into a session with the artist. And this social phenomenon testifies to the important role played by the Winterhalter's portrait in representing the status and symbolic capital of his clients. So in a certain sense, we can say that his works served as this visual confirmation, of belonging to the highest social levels of European society. And throughout his life, the artist worked actively in leading European centers, as I said. So let's summarize that it was France, it was England, Belgium, Switzerland, Russian Empire, Poland, Rzeczpospolita, I'm not counting Germany, his mainland, right? So it is basically almost some Nordic countries as well. So basically all of the Europe. He was also adapting, that was his most interesting and important, that he was adapting his style to the aesthetic demands of various monarchical courts, like where he was working. And despite widespread recognition, the last years of Winterhalter's life are marked by decline in creativity, because in his creative activity like this, because it was said somewhat that he did not, for the last 2 years of his life, that he did not paint at all. And on July 8, 1873, in Frankfurt am Main, he died, probably from typhoid fever, at the age of 68. And after the artist's death, his legacy lost relevance for a long time and found itself on the periphery of artistic discourse, actually. And it was only in 1987 when this retrospective exhibition took place in London and in Paris, which became a turning point in the process of rethinking his contribution to European art of the 19th century. And this event contributed to the revival of interest in his works, giving it historical and cultural significance and critical rethinking in the context of the visual culture of the modern period. So today, Winterhalter's his paintings, is considered not only as an aesthetic phenomenon, but also an important source, as I said, for studying the social history, visual culture, and fashion of the time of the European aristocracy. So his works are kind of like these unique documents, as I said as well, of the era, recording not only this appearance, the appearance of the costumers, but also the subtle mechanisms of representation of power, social status, and gender identity. So some scholars see features in his technique that anticipate the development of Impressionism, particularly in the way he conveyed light, those textures and atmosphere, which is pretty arguable, I think, but well, let it be. But despite long-standing criticism for being decorative, his portrait remained indispensable in the iconography of the royal houses of Europe. So this is everything that I have for today for you. I hope that that was pretty aesthetically pleasing for you as well to look at all of his paintings, and I think that you actually you can actually see the development of his works, and you can spot on when he started to feel more comfortable with his style, and when he started to become more confident in his skills, basically. And so I talked about those two works that I really like. So that was a very big surprise. I actually saw Elisabeth Vigée-Lebrun also, Marie Antoinette, one of the portraits in the Museum of Art History in Vienna, which was also so surprising. I got there and it's like in a first room, and you just like entering this room, this hall, and there's Marie Antoinette, and I'm like, oh my god, I know you. I talked about you. I know, yeah, and so I saw it also with my own two eyes. And oh my god, it's not about that, but whatever. I hope that, I'm sorry, I might be a bit too excited today, too flashy today, so I'm sorry if it would be hard to listen to. I'm just, as you can see, I'm very excited to talk about art finally, not just about bones. I love bones, I love my people, but yeah, whatever. So sorry if I will flash you with energy today, But I hope that you like this video still. I hope that you find something new for yourself. I hope that I was able to open to you a new artist, or maybe again, as with Elizabeth Vigée-Lebrun, maybe a lot of you knew who he was and saw his works, but you had no idea, well, who's the artist and about his life and his works and style and whatever. So I hope that, well, as usually it's the most important thing for me is that you find out something new for yourself today, and it was interesting enough for you. And yeah, oh my god, I'm like, I run in a marathon, I'm like you know. So I will stop here and I will see you in the next videos. Bye bye.